All right. Hello, all. For those of you who may be watching, welcome back to another study of Habakkuk, part six, I believe. We already did part five, so I guess this is part six. Um, Again, for those of you who have missed it, they'll still be up there. Don't worry. Um, as far as I know, we're doing this for a little while. We're going to, and we're going to see what our studies we're going to be doing from there. I still have plans to do more stuff with the channel. Um, just take it as it goes. So, Mara, who's been leading the study for a little while, who's been doing quite well at it, I'm handing it to her. So, yeah, stage is yours.
Okay, so I'm gonna start off by saying cool story. I don't think I told you yesterday or not, but at work there's a guy that comes in about once a week, mainly just to say hi and check on everybody. He's actually the leader of the rugby team for UT. Um, I've gotten the chance to meet a couple of the rugby players. I met the captain yesterday. His name was Luke, I believe. But I was standing outside, uh, having some outside time. I'll just say that. And he pulled up and he's like, "Hey, how are you doing?" I was like, "Good." And I was like, "Your favorite person's here," who was one of my managers. He's like, "Oh, good. I'll go in and check on him." And he said, I'm actually here to lead a Bible study. They have a men's Bible study for the rugby team on Wednesdays somewhere on campus." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool. I'm actually leading a Bible study myself." And he said, "Really?" And that's when he introduced me to Luke and told him that we were doing a Bible study on Habakkuk. And he was like, "That's a really hard book to tackle." And I was like, "Well, I have my own book that I'm going through, and then I'll do a couple of studies myself and then go through it with my friends." And, also being transparent, as I usually do. He asked me how I came to know the Lord, and I mentioned that I grew up Baptist, but walked away from it for a number of reasons. Um, and then came back because my anxiety was so bad, and a lot of my friends and family suggested that I start going back to church. And I go to a Church of God Sanctified now, and I actually just recently joined. And I also mentioned to him that I am the only and first white person to join that church, and they thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, he thought it was very cool that I'm leading my own Bible study, and uh, offered to let me join the all men's um, Bible study. But I told him, I work on Sundays and Wednesdays. There's no negotiating that, unfortunately. But yeah, I thought that you, Brandon, would think that's cool, and whoever else is watching think that was cool.
I did. I thought it was pretty cool. Um, if ever they want to come on see the stuff, what goes on, that's fine by me.
Oh yeah, no, I showed him the YouTube thing. He said he would check it out, so there's that.
As long as he's prepared to see some crazy stuff, not too crazy, but I got some skits up there, so to say the least. People who come on here, you guys know what I mean by that, especially
Yeah.
what us men do in the morning. Go to the bathroom, take a leak, fart, and we're done. But anyways, please go on.
Okay. So the couple of like pages, chapters, or whatever that I went through, they're kind of short. And then I was trying to see how long the last chapter for part whatever is. It was pretty long. I didn't have time to go through it. So I have two chapters that are kind of short to go through. Uh, and it starts off with the truth you need while you wait for answers. And I'll go ahead and read the first little section that she gives, and then I'll continue on from there. So, imagine for just a moment that you are in a relationship with the love of your life, how they make your heart happy until they don't. You knew that they were growing distant, but did not realize how far they would go. The betrayal leaves you unable to sleep at night, and yet wishing you could sleep the day out for every morning. You eat grief for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but have no appetite for much else. How could they do this? You are that lover, and so am I. We make God's heart so happy, and then we slowly grow distant, again and again. How ironic is it that we question God and His faithfulness, His presence, and His deliverance when we are so prone to wander? So let's examine our own unfaithfulness today. Is it just me, or does Habakkuk have an awful lot to say about sea creatures and nets in Habakkuk 1:12 through 17? When you see any recurring threads in a passage of the scripture, it's wise to dig a little bit to see why it's there. So I read through 12 through 17 again, and it really starts off with the talking about the fish and the sea and stuff in like 14 through 17. So I'll read my translation of 14 through 17. And makest men as the fishes of the sea, as the creeping things that have no ruler over them. They take up all of them with their angle, and they catch them in their net, and gather them in their drag. Therefore they rejoice and are glad. Therefore they sacrifice unto their net, and burn incense unto their drag, because by them their portion is fat, and their meat is plenteous. Shall they therefore empty their net, and not spare continually to slay the nations? So I found four references to like fish and nets and stuff. One in 14, one in 15, one in 16, and one in 17. The I think the fish in this that little passage represent the people, and I think what he's kind of trying to describe is gathering up all of like the unbelievers and making them faithful. But then also like what happens when fish are put on in not wetlands, they die. So then the question would be, what do you think Habakkuk's trying to say with all the fish and net references? If it is the gathering of the unbelievers and making them faithful, I think what he's trying to say is like, what people say when people get quote unquote saved. Death to the old self and life to the new self.
I was going to say this. I'm not trying to cut you off, I promise.
You're
But it
good.
goes back to one part in the Bible where I think it was Simon Peter. Um, it's still in context. I want to make sure people know that right now. It's still in context where he's in there crying. He said, "Lord, leave me. I'm a sinful man." And he said, "Come follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men." Because him and his brother, I forgot the name. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to know that, so I apologize. But they were fishermen. So they were out there fishing, as far as I know, all the time. And Jesus basically saw him, said, "Come follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men." In other words, he's sitting here saying, we will make believers as we go along our travels, basically. And when I'm looking at Habakkuk, it's basically saying the same thing, 14 through 17, right?
Yeah.
That's basically, I guess, what it's saying, where it says, you have made people like the fish of the sea, like crawling things that have no ruler. And this goes back to another part where Jesus says, when he sees the multitude, he says, they're like sheep without a shepherd. So basically, that's what we are. We're the sheep without a shepherd. And then, let's see, verse 15. The enemy brings all of them up with a hook. He drags them out with his net and gathers them to his scene, so he rejoices and exalts. I'm not sure what some of this has to do with that, actually, so I'm probably going to shut my mouth for a bit, let you carry on. But I think you see my point.
Yeah. I do think that it's kind of like a paraphrase of the Simon Peter story. I feel like, anyways, because that's kind of what I was trying to get across. But um, we're gonna go back to the story of Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel. So comparing the verses Daniel 9:2 and Jeremiah 25:12. You can start wherever you want to with that.
Okay, you said Jeremiah what?
25:12.
25:12. So 25 verse 12 says this. So the reason why I'm not using my Geneva, folks, which is the one I use, it's old English, so a lot of people won't understand. I'm still working with that, but I am working with this as well. It's the RSV. I'm getting in our room. Hang on. I never have quiet in this house. Okay, Jeremiah 25:12, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then after 70 years are completed, I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, the land of the Chaldeans, for their iniquity, says the Lord, making the land an everlasting waste. So there's that one.
And then the second one was Daniel 9:2.
Daniel 9:2 coming up. Let's see, Daniel chapter 9, verse 2. In the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, perceived, excuse me, in the books, the number of years, that according to the word of the Lord to the prophet Jeremiah, must be fulfilled for the devastation of Jerusalem, namely 70 years.
So comparing those two, I could only pick out two things. One, both of them mention something about 70 years, and then the verse in Daniel mentions Jeremiah. And while I was looking at it, I was realizing that Jeremiah is after the book of Daniel. Like, not directly after, but a couple of books ahead. Jeremiah is a couple of books ahead. So I think maybe uh, either Daniel was prophesizing something, or he already had the book of Jeremiah. He had the writings of it before, and I don't know. But that's what I thought. So, because like it mentioned something about Jeremiah. What do you think?
You could be right. I personally don't have any answers to that, but please do carry on.
Well, also Daniel had the truth memorized already. So in Daniel chapter 1 verses 8 through 16, let me turn here because we're gonna have to answer some questions about that. I turned right to it.
You said Daniel 8:16?
Daniel chapter 1 verse 8 through 16.
Oh, 1, 8 through 16. Okay. Okay, I got it. So let me go in here real quick again, because like I said, I don't have any quiet here, and I can't think properly if I don't have that. Okay, 8 through 16, Daniel chapter 1. But Daniel resolved that he would not defile himself with the royal rations of food and wine. So he asked the palace master to allow him to not defile himself. Now, God allowed Daniel to receive favor and compassion from the palace master. The palace master said to Daniel, I am afraid, my lord, the king, he has appointed your food and your drink. If he should see you in poorer condition than the other young men of your own age, you would endanger my head with the king. Then Daniel asked the guard, whom the palace master had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, if I'm saying this right, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days. Let us be given vegetables to eat and water to drink. You can then compare our appearance with the appearance of the young men who eat the royal rations, and deal with your servants according to what you observe. So he agreed to this proposal and tested them for 10 days. At the end of 10 days, it was observed that they appeared better and fatter than all the young men who had been eating the royal rations. So the guard continued to withdraw their royal rations and the wine they were to drink, and gave them vegetables.
Okay, so What was the familiar problem that Daniel and his friends faced right off the bat? There were broken laws and pretty much, as the Bible was trying to say, fat people, which
Yep.
is gluttony. Why did they not want to do that? Because
Because it was
he,
against God's law.
yeah, and they knew that they would get unhealthy. Um, what verb does the first verse in this passage use to describe Daniel and how he responded?
Let's see here.
Mine says purposed. I don't know what yours says.
For which verse?
The first chapter, or verse 8.
Verse 8. Let's see. But Daniel resolved that he would not defile himself with the royal rations of food and wine. So he asked the palace master to allow him to not defile himself.
Right. So he like pretty much promised in his heart, and then also uh mine says requested. He promised and requested something different. So, and that's going back to the three-step plan that we've gone over about how to pray when we're like devastated. You know, asking God our hard questions, identifying one truth that we can believe in, and then standing on our truth. And pretty much Daniel and his friends did that just in that passage because they were upset that the laws were broken. They did not eat the fattening food and then literally proved their point by being looking better and not fat compared to the other people that had taken of the king's meat and wine and stuff. So, and then I'm going to read another part of uh, another thing that Dana said in this Bible study. Daniel and the guys could smell that roasted pig. In their culture, anytime there was meat on a table, there had been worship in a temple. The wine was understood to be a proper inclusion for idol worship. This wasn't just dinner, but a pagan feast in honor of the Babylon gods. Daniel calls for a huddle. He asks the guys to search their mental Rolodexes for what they needed. Truth. I imagine he might read his out loud as he rolls them through his mind. Let's see. Here's one thing we know. We don't eat pork. Oh, this one might come in handy. Remember that wine has been a gateway drug to the intoxicating addiction of idol worship for our grandparents. And what else? Oh, wait, I found the one I need. Yahweh promised he himself would be with us wherever we went, and we don't need to be afraid. And let's see. I don't think Daniel all of a sudden resolved to do the right thing. Um, Becoming exceptional is never like an overnight kind of thing. And she says Malcolm Gladwell analyzed what makes people exceptional in his book Outliers. From the Beatles to Bill Gates, he tried to find the common denominator of greatness. His hotly debated discovery is the 10,000-hour rule, which states that people who excel have disciplined themselves into their expertise by diligently spending about 20 hours a week learning their trade. These are people who did not mindlessly go along with the crowd's choices and behavior. And she put like four examples down um, that people do for hours at a time. So, scrolling through social media, the amount of hours that people do that in a day is 21 hours. Shopping online is 20 hours. Watching anything streamed online is 20 hours. And eating, food prep, and thinking about eating is like 15 hours a day. Um, and I was like, okay, well, I don't really necessarily watch TV, but I listen to it. Because, like, for me personally, my TV is playing all night long because it helps me sleep and go to sleep. So I could kind of resonate with that one. Um, does the time you spend doing those things or just other things in general increase when you're in a painful or difficult season of life? Yes. Yes, it does.
I was gonna say, yeah, it does because I'm not gonna bring anything personal in this, but um, when I had the stuff happen to me, like losing my mom and losing my ex and everything like that, that did increase a whole lot. Not in a good way either. Um, Everything she said also folks the amount of time a person spends per day, rather doing online shopping or watching a YouTube video, stuff like that. All that's accurate, and we can't say that we don't do that because there's a good majority of us who do that. And what she said when she has TV on to help her sleep, that's basically what I do as well. I don't know why, but even at 20 years old, 28 years old, I still do that. And sometimes I have a nightlight on. That's sad for me, but it's accurate. That's all I'm gonna say. It's accurate, and
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's other people out there who do that too. And some people come out here saying, "No, we don't. Don't lie. We did that before. Don't lie. Come on."
So, with that being said, those are just some examples that Dana gave. And I mean, it could either resonate with something like that or you could resonate with something else. Either way, is that what you want to be known for? Like, is like watching TV for 21 plus hours a day what you want to be um what you want to be known for and what you want to excel in? No. So, what is something that you think you're known for? Me personally, I'm known for working all the time. I work 24/7. I like to work. Literally, I had an employee look at me one time and tell me, "Mara, are you never not here?"
Mari, you still there?
Yeah, you hear me?
Hang on, guys. We're getting
Hello.
there. We
Huh?
go. I was saying, were you there? You glitched out for a second.
Oh, I think it's because of the rain.
All right. Can you repeat what you said? I don't mean to make you repeat. I'm
Yeah, no,
sorry.
you're good. So is watching TV like something that you want to be known for? Like watching TV 21 hours a day? No, that's just an example. So, what is something that you're known for? Because for me personally, I'm known for working all the time. Literally, I like to work. I work 24/7. And for example, in that, one of my old employees at the OG Canes literally looked at me one day and said, "Are you never not here?" I said, "No, I live here and I visit home sometimes. Like I'm known for working because I like to work." So, yeah. Uh Maybe like Daniel, whoever's listening, you're just a resolute individual like but I am not. So, um I let me see. I encourage you guys to make a resolution to change the way that you quote unquote feast on this world. Um, Daniel told the king's palace guard to give him 10 days before making a judgment concerning his self control. So I challenge you to do whatever God tells you to do, or something else other than, you know, the example that she gave watching TV for 20 hours. Um, Before I say anything else to add, Brandon?
No comment for right now, but you do
Okay.
make a good point because I do try to work a lot despite the pain I go through. Because one, I know I'm getting stuff taken care of. I know that, hey, when I'm paid, okay, this is gonna be taken care of, that's gonna be taken care of, blah 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 blah. And I know everything is gonna be not entirely peachy, but peachy enough, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So, moving on to the next tiny little chapter that I got through. Uh, and I'll start off with reading what she says, and then I'll move on from there. 1 decade ago, my very dear friend, Nancy DeMoss, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, was delivering a message on Habakkuk. She paraphrased the passage we will study today into a prayer for our times. Lord, human effort isn't cutting it. It can give us megachurches, it can give us multi-million-dollar ministries, it can get us on radio and TV and publish books. Lord, we want to see your power. We want to see what only you can do. We don't want to settle for what man can do. Lord, revive your work. For many decades, American Christians have adopted the same customs, behaviors, and patterns of the culture in the name of the ministry. While I think some of that is useful, it's possible we've gone too far and have been doing things in our own power. In recent years, megachurches were emptying. The mass exodus was so significant that The Atlantic published an article titled America's Epidemic of Empty Churches. Some authors who were writing the wave of Christian celebrity status when Nancy originally prayed those words have either recanted their faith or have taken a razor blade to their Bibles to cut out what they don't like. Many multi-million-dollar ministries have crumbled, having leaders whose morale and financial ethics were found wanting. The wreckage was headline fodder for the likes of the New York Times. And then a new virus emerged, resulting in global pandemic. With the gods of culture quieted by empty public spaces and spiritual fervor awakened by the desperate need, the churches began to meet online in small home groups with burgeoning attendance. Even the secular media noticed. The Wall Street Journal published an article with a headline that posed a question: A coronavirus great awakening? Sometimes the most important ingredient for spiritual renewal is a cataclysmic event. In the midst of global ground zero, the world paused to remember God. So, with that being said, we're going to go into Habakkuk 3:2. And no, we did not miss an entire chapter. We're going to get into that later. Find.
Habakkuk chapter 3, verse 2.
Yes.
Okay. It says, O Lord, I have heard of your renown, and I stand in awe, O Lord, of your work in our own time. Revive it in our own time. Make it known in wrath. May you remember mercy.
So, in simpler terms, kind of means I've heard your voice and I was afraid. And in the midst of years, make yourself known. Uh, I think that was a request, but also not in the form of a question. And I think that he wants God's work revived, but later on down the years. Because we've also talked about how um, God's sense of time is different than ours. Like, God is working, but it's also, it can feel like it takes a long time. But uh, to God, it's just like a blink of an eye. So in chapter 1, Habakkuk was focused on his homeland. Now I feel like he's just kind of wanting the world to change. He wants a revival. He's literally craving the revival. So even though the disaster of his day revealed God's anger, he was still begging for mercy in a way. Um, just not in like it more of like a statement form. He's not really in chapter 3, he's not really crying out for God to do anything or just anything anyways. And when you think about it, kind of the request that he has is kind of not outrageous but just odd in a way. So not only does he want God to show up at like the top like cherry cake of the problem, but he also wants God to kind of favorite them with a revival, if that makes sense.
It does.
Okay. So, oh shit. Oh, sorry, my language. Zena scared me. I wasn't expecting her to be there. Um, the word revive, in verb form, means to return to consciousness or life, become active or flourishing, and the transitive verb means to restore from a depressed, inactive, or unused state, or to bring back. So, let's see. Um, what do you think, or how would you describe the word covenant? Like, how would you define that?
The way I see it, a covenant just means promise. Like the Lord promises a certain thing for you, not just really to help give you encouragement, but to know, like, hey, I'm going to do this great thing in your life. I'm right here. I always have been here, and I'm not going anywhere. This
Yeah.
goes back to Joshua 1:9, where it says, I will be with you always wherever you go.
So, it's difficult for us to define a word when we have like almost no context for it in this society that we're in. Our our closest related word I think is contract, but she says the word contract pales in comparison to the richness of a complex partnership that the ancient Hebrew world understood covenant to represent. It was a legally binding agreement, but not just a transaction, it was also a relationship. And a covenant is a relationship that is a blend of law and love. So Habakkuk calls on God to remember the merciful side of his character. And it's also in other passages of the Bible, of God's grace, of his covenant to the people that like actually had that relationship with him. So going to Genesis 8, verse 1.
Verse 1. Okay, so you said Genesis 8:1, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, God, I'm sorry I keep asking, but I just want to make sure that I'm on track, just so I don't like forget. So that's
You're
the
good.
thing.
I also tell you wrong sometimes too, so.
Okay. Now, God remembered Noah and every beast and all the cattle that were with him in the ark. Therefore, God made a wind to pass upon the earth, and the waters ceased.
So right off the bat, chapter or number verse 1 is a promise. God remembered Noah and every living thing. And Genesis 9:15 says straight off the bat, "And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh." And that's also when he's talking about the rainbow as a promise, where he says, "And the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh." And I have to find it because I have no clue. I think it was like in the 700s. Yep. Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 8.
Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 8. Hang on. Nehemiah. Nehemiah. Is that Old Testament?
Yes.
Okay, let me try to find it. Hang on. Nehemiah.
Mine's page 746, if that helps.
I'm using an app. That's why I'm saying here.
Oh, I like the physical Bible.
Privacy. Nehemiah. Habakkuk. You go ahead and read it because I'm having a hard time trying to find it.
Uh, so, like I said, right off the bat, remember, I beseech thee, the word that thou commandest thy servant Moses, saying, If ye transgress, I will scatter you abroad among the nations. I also like the next verse after that, which doesn't have anything to do with this. I mean, it might, but Didn't she didn't give me verse 9 as a passage. But if you turn unto me and keep my commandments and do them, though there were of you cast out unto the uttermost part of the heaven, yet will I gather them from thence, and will bring them unto the place that I have chosen to set my name there. I just like that verse, so I thought I was gonna throw that out there.
That actually coincides with, if I can find it real quick, Jeremiah 11:4, where it says this, which I commanded to your fathers when I brought them out of the land of Egypt from the iron furnace, saying, obey my voice and do according to all these things which I commanded you. So shall you be my people, and I will be your God.
It does. It's crazy how now that we are in this study, there's verses that kind of sound a lot like other verses in the Bible. I think that's crazy.
I think it's pretty good. It helps.
So the next one is Luke 154. And in the last part of the verse says, um, in remembrance of his mercy, which is, again, remembering. I don't know what the word holpen means, but the verse starts with, he hath holpen his servant Israel in remembrance of his mercy.
He has what, Israel?
Holpen.
Oh, I got this one. So Luke 154, right?
Yes.
He has helped his servant Israel in remembrance of his mercy. So it says helped, it's helped.
Ah. Oh. There you go.
That's why I had to go like, wait, what? I
Yeah.
did.
And the last verse is Luke 172, which says to perform the mercy promised to our fathers and to remember his holy covenant. So, three different ways of saying covenant in one verse: promise, remember, and covenant. So, yeah. Um, the love of God is so strong that even when he is ignored, deserted, or rejected, he is drawn as a husband to his wife or a mother to her child to love in spite of the actions of others. The wrongs are real, but so is the compassion and the desire to forgive. If the quote unquote condition for restoration or a renewed desire to acknowledge God is present to allow his mercy to be unleashed. I thought that was good. Um, so, how have you witnessed what I just read off, like a new desire to acknowledge God? How have you witnessed that in your corner of the world lately? For me personally, I've just realized it through me because literally a renewed desire to acknowledge God. Like last year, I would be laughing at the fact that if somebody had told me, hey, you're going to be leading a Bible study on Habakkuk, I would have laughed and told them, get wrecked in very much more colorful language. So I don't know if you have anything to say, Brandon, or if you want me to keep going or what.
With me personally, few things I witnessed with myself. It never made me lose my faith, even though I did question at times, because a lot of stuff happened in my life. I lost my home. I didn't know what to do. Things went good until I basically, I guess in a sense, ignored him, even though I don't believe I ignored him, but I guess I did in a sense, not realizing I did. And then not thinking to be a pastor. And when I was chosen for it, I'm like, I didn't expect it to be easy. I'll be plain simple. I like how people sit here and say, oh, you weren't called for this or that. Really? Okay. Then did you hear God tell you this? Because here's the thing, and this is what helped me out a lot. I said this before, and I'm still going to say it again. With a lot of false teachers, they will speak tons of lies, and I do mean tons. And they will not encourage you to do a Bible study or anything because they don't want to be called out. They don't want to lose that power. They speak tons of lies, but they speak only a pinch of truth. And last Christmas was where I began to have more of an understanding and change. And when you first start to change, and even if you're coming back to the faith, don't think it's going to be plopped in your lap, just like, well, there you go.
Yeah.
It's not. Like you're saying, when Jesus went ahead and did a thing with the mustard seed thing, okay? Even a grain of a mustard seed, if you have faith of that size, it can move mountains. Think of what happens when that seed grows. Even if your faith is a pinch, it's still enough to do something. So you have to treat it as such. You have to treat it like it's just a seed beginning to grow. Question is, what soil is that? Is it a good soil or is it bad soil? That's why you have to be delicate with it. And I myself have witnessed that thanks to a few friends, which one of them's on here with me right now,
Hello.
and stuff I had to experience along the way. That's why, and there was a lot of times I wanted to quit being a pastor because of what people said. But I see how many people I'm helping and do my best to be a good example and trying to help others, even though I'm gonna be flat honest, it's a pain in the ass. I'm gonna tell you straight up, it's a pain. But in the long run, sorry about that. But in the long run, it's worth it. So, and I have witnessed that myself, and that's all I gotta say about that.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't know anything about pastor work because I'm not. But um, the next chapter is Genesis 15, 1 through 21. No, I'm not gonna make you read the whole thing. I'll just um, I don't want to say dumb it down, but uh, give it to you in a nutshell. So it's when Abram is asking the Lord, um, hey, basically, like, hey, I don't have any kids. Can you give me a kid? And God's told him to, and also I found another, I think, Disney reference, like Bible reference in Disney. In the verse 5, God takes him to look at the stars and says, look towards the heaven and tell the stars if you should be able to number them. And he said unto him, so shall thy seed be. Basically meaning this story, is the one where he says, hey, all these stars, those are all your kids. But when I was reading that, I thought about the Lion King scene when Simba's dad took him and said, as far as the eye you can see, that's yours. So I don't know if that maybe Disney took that from the Bible. I don't know.
I don't know because Disney wasn't known for some biblical stuff, but it does appear to seem like it. And Simba's dad, that was Mufasa.
I can never remember. I always get Mufasa and Scar confused. I don't know how or why, but anyways, that's the story that she's going over now. Um, and she also talked about the ritual, I guess you could say, that he had him do. Um, take me a cow of 3 years old and a she goat of 3 years old and a sheep of 3 years old, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon, and lay each piece one against another, but not the birds. And when and apparently I'm assuming all of those things were supposed to be dead because it says when the fowls came down upon the carcasses, Abram drove them away. And let's see, where's it at? And when it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp passed between those pieces. And the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river and the river Euphrates. So that was kind of that whole thing in a nutshell. Um, So, when covenants were made in the ancient Near East, certain rites would accompany the agreement in order to signify what would happen if one or both parties failed to live up to their end of the pact. One common ritual involved dismembering animals and then laying the pieces in two rows side by side with a path in between. The individuals making the covenant would then pass the animals and invoke a curse upon themselves if they broke the agreement. In performing this rite, the parties were in effect saying, "If I do not fulfill the terms of this covenant, may the destruction that befall these animals also be upon my head." And then something else I found interesting that Dana said, through the pages of the Bible, we are witness to a remarkable occurrence in Abram's covenant ceremony. Only God walked through this sacrifice of animals. Abram did not. Abram was asleep when God, appearing in the form of a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch, passed through the broken animal pieces. Essentially, he was saying, "If this covenant is broken, and it will be, may I be as these bloody sacrificed animals," which I feel like was another prophesization of the crucifixion. To someone living in the covenant age, this would have been unthinkable. Maybe, just maybe, the lesser partner in a covenant would pass alone through the pieces as they were the one that needed the leg up. But never would the greater party walk alone through them. It would make it would not make sense to anyone who understood the covenant to think of the more powerful and provisional party not being able to fulfill their covenant obligations. We have no comprehension of just how faithful our God is to us. He anticipated his people's inability to be faithful and walk through those bloody pieces anyways. Which is why I think it was another way to, like, another prophesization of the crucifixion. I could be wrong. Uh, Habakkuk had a complete understanding of God's faithfulness, and he called upon it in times of difficulty. So that should just be a perfect picture of us. We should be able to get the answers to our hard questions, or have the answers to our hard questions be rooted in truth. And our hard questions themselves should be rooted in truth. Um, so a fact that I am facing right now is, number one, my bills aren't able to get paid. I can't do it by myself. And another fact is I need another car, but I also can't afford that right now. Truth is, God will provide somehow, some way, sometime. So that's just a fact and a truth. And I'm personally trying to, when I can think about it during the days and weeks, I'm trying to be like, okay, here's a fact of this situation right now. What's the truth? Like, yesterday at work, fact, I was having anxiety. Truth, I'll be okay. I am not going to have a seizure because that's what my brain tells me. So when I'm having panic attacks, if I just get busy, I will be fine. I will be okay. So, let's see, was there another page? No. So again, she's ending with trying to just fact and truth yourself all the time, especially during the hard times. And that is all I have for today.
All right. And
Unless
we
you have
got,
anything else you want to add.
I have really nothing to add right now. Um, but I will say this, the whole purpose of the study, everyone, is that, we're all trying to find out truly and honestly what's what. And sorry for the noise in the background. When you live in the type of neighborhood as I do, that's what you're gonna hear a lot. So one moment. Okay, now it's calming down. The
It
whole purpose of
happens.
this is to try to find out what is truly what. Now, People want to label the Bible as a fairy tale. If you want to label that, fine. In the end, you'll find out for yourself. But I know the Bible 1% to be 1% true. And we can get this from the Hebrew and Greek. But the important part is to know is God is right here. He's always going to be right there. He never left us. We may have left him, but he didn't leave us. He was just hoping for us to come back to him.
Fact.
That's the whole purpose. Like Mara, for example. Actually, let me get you off screen here because now I'm on here now and you have nothing else to add. So exit solo mode. Okay. So she can tell her story anytime she wants to, but she is the prime example of that because there are churches who do stuff stupidly. And when I'm talking about a church, I don't mean the people, I mean the building itself. And they have a very unique way of pushing people away from Christ. And I've seen that happen with some people, and I almost got to that point. And this is why I don't attend the building. If I ever had a building, it'll be ran 10 times differently compared to that. I'm not saying I'm accepting sin. I'm not saying that. But if there are people who are going through something, there's something they want to fix up and they don't know how. Well, people like me and her, we want to help. We've been there. We know the situation. We may not have the same situation as you, the person who are maybe watching this, but we've been there at some point in time, is what we're trying to say. And that's the whole purpose of not just my TikTok, because I'm not even there much, but this channel. If we've reached one person, that means the world to us. We didn't save nobody. Jesus did. We're just messengers. That's it. So, if anyone had missed a live, again, don't worry. It will be in the live section for here, but also be in the video section. If you have missed it, just be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon that we don't miss a live or a video. Because we're gonna keep on doing this even after the Habakkuk study is over. We're still gonna find ways of doing our studies and finding out what we can. That's pretty much all we can do while having fun along the way. But other than that, God bless you all, and we hope to see you in the next video. Peace.
Have a good night.